Carolyn Miller, a 48-year-old black woman with a fighter's grit and a healer's heart, stepped off the Greyhound bus onto the cracked asphalt of Waco, Texas, her duffel bag slung over one shoulder. The air was thick with late summer heat, the kind that makes your skin stick to your shirt, and the horizon shimmer like a mirage. She'd left behind the relentless pulse of Detroit, its graffiti-streaked walls, the echo of her past as an amateur MMA fighter, and the wreckage of a marriage that had crumbled under the weight of too many silences. Now, here she was, in a sleepy town where the biggest news was the high school football team's latest win and the diner's new pecan pie recipe. She'd come to Waco to rebuild, to be closer to her 19-year-old daughter, Aisha, who was studying at Baylor University and needed her mom more than she'd admit. Carolyn, a part-time nurse at the local clinic, wasn't one for fanfare. She moved through life with the quiet discipline of someone who'd spent years training in the cage. Calculated, controlled, her dark eyes reading people like opponents in a ring. She wasn't here to start fights. She'd hung up her gloves long ago. But trouble, she knew, had a way of finding you, no matter how small the town. The two-bedroom rental on Elm Street was a far cry from her old Detroit apartment, with its peeling paint and the constant hum of traffic. Waco's stillness unnerved her. Crickets at night, neighbors who waved too eagerly, and pickup trucks parked in every driveway. She'd traded urban chaos for this, a 5,000-square-foot plot of parched grass, a sagging porch, and a skyline of grain silos against a blood-orange sunset. Yet, there was something electric in the air, a tension she couldn't shake. Maybe it was the way the locals whispered about new folks at the gas station, their eyes lingering on her braided hair and muscled frame. Or maybe it was the faded missing person flyer tacked to the community board at the Piggly Wiggly, a young woman's face hauntingly similar to Aisha's. Carolyn's instincts, honed from years of dodging punches and reading body language, told her this town wasn't as sleepy as it seemed. She kept her routine tight: 6 a.m., runs along the Brazos River, 12-hour shifts at the clinic, and evenings teaching Aisha self-defense in their cramped living room. But the quiet life she craved felt like a thin veneer over something darker, something waiting to crack. As she locked the front door each night, her old fighter's reflexes twitched, sensing that Waco, with its 120,000 souls and small-town secrets, might demand she step back into the ring, whether she wanted to or not. Carolyn Miller had been in Waco, Texas, for barely 3 weeks, and already the cracks in the town's small-town charm were showing. Her daughter, Aisha, had just started classes at Baylor University, navigating the sprawling 1,000-acre campus with a mix of excitement and nerves, her dorm room a chaotic college of textbooks and posters. Carolyn, meanwhile, clocked in at the Waco Family Clinic, a squat brick building off Highway 84, where the hum of fluorescent lights and the smell of antiseptic greeted her for 12-hour shifts. She'd hoped the part-time nursing gig would be a fresh start, a chance to blend into this town of 120,000, but the clinic's staff room felt like a cage match she hadn't signed up for. Julie, a 42-year-old nurse with a peroxide blonde bob and a smile sharper than a scalpel, led the charge. To Julie and her clique, Locals born and bred in the heart of Texas, Carolyn was an outsider, a black woman from Detroit, too quiet, too disciplined, too other. Julie's barbs were subtle but relentless, delivered with a saccharine drawl. Must be hard, adjusting to our ways after. What? Motor City chaos. Or, hope you're keeping up. Carolyn, city folk don't always get small town medicine. At first, Carolyn let it slide. She'd faced worse in the MMA ring, where a single misstep could mean a busted lip or a broken rib. She kept her head down, her calloused hands steady as she drew blood or checked vitals, her focus as unyielding as the 90-degree Texas heat outside. But Julie's crew didn't let up. They forgot to pass on shift schedules, left Carolyn with the messiest patient charts, and whispered just loud enough for her to hear. She thinks she's better than us, coming from that crime-ridden city. The rumors grew uglier, snide comments about her divorce, her rough past as a fighter, even hints she wasn't fit for the clinic. Carolyn's silence, born of discipline, only emboldened them. Julie, sensing weakness, escalated. A misplaced patient file blamed on Carolyn. A snide remark in front of the clinic's director about trusting the new hire. Each jab landed like a body shot, testing the restraint she'd honed over years of dodging punches. The tension wasn't just at work. Aisha came home one evening, her eyes red, muttering about a professor who'd questioned her fit at Baylor, echoing the same veiled prejudice. Carolyn felt the old fighter's instinct flare. Protect what's yours, strike back, but she swallowed it, teaching Aisha a new self-defense move instead. Yet, as she locked the Elm Street Rentals door that night, the missing person flyer from the Piggly Wiggly flashed in her mind, its eerie connection to Aisha gnawing at her. Julie's clique, the town's whispers, and Waco's undercurrent of secrets were closing in, and Carolyn knew silence might not be enough to keep the fight at bay. The air in the Waco family clinic had grown thicker than the 95-degree Texas heat by Carolyn Miller's fourth week. The hostility from Julie and her clique had sharpened into something deliberate, venomous. It came to a head one chaotic Tuesday during a packed shift. As Carolyn rushed to restock a supply cart, a tray of medical instruments, syringes, gauze, and scalpels, crashed to the linoleum floor. The clatter drew every eye in the room. Julie, standing nearby, smirked and loudly claimed Carolyn's carelessness had caused the mess, her voice carrying to the clinic director's office. By the end of the day, a formal write-up landed on Carolyn's record with whispers of "or one more mistake," costing her the job. The accusation stung worse than a jab to the jaw, but Carolyn, true to her disciplined nature, bit back her anger. She nodded, cleaned the mess, and finished her 12-hour shift, her dark eyes burning with the restraint of a fighter who knew better than to swing first. Inside, though, the pressure was building like a 100-pound weight pressing on her chest. That night, in the dim glow of her Elm Street Rentals garage, Carolyn unleashed what she couldn't say. She dragged an old punching bag from a Waco pawn shop, its leather worn but sturdy, and hung it from a 10-foot beam. With Aisha asleep upstairs, Carolyn wrapped her hands, her old MMA reflexes waking as she drove fist after fist into the bag. Each thud echoed the years she'd spent in Detroit's cages. 5'8", 160 pounds of controlled fury. The rhythm of her punches, steady as a metronome, betrayed the rage she'd buried under Julie's taunts, the right, up, and the town's sidelong glances. Sweat soaked her tank top, her braided hair swinging with each strike. As she fought not just the bag, but the urge to confront the clique that wanted her gone. 2 nights later, the tension snapped. After a late shift, Carolyn stepped into the clinic's dimly lit parking lot, her keys dangling from one hand, her 20-foot walk to her beat, up Ford Focus feeling longer under the flickering streetlights. Then she heard it. A muffled cry near a row of cars. Instinct kicked in. She crept forward, her pulse steady, and saw Julie pinned against a pickup truck by a hulking figure in a hoodie, his hand gripping her arm. Julie's usual smugness was gone, replaced by wide-eyed panic. The attacker, unaware of Carolyn, muttered threats about knowing too much. Carolyn froze, her fighter's mind calculating. Intervene and risk everything, or walk away from the woman who'd made her life hell. The missing person flyer from the Piggly Wiggly flashed in her mind, its eerie connection to Aisha, now screaming danger. Waco's secrets were unraveling in this 2-acre lot, and Carolyn's silence, her greatest shield, was about to be tested. In the flickering glow of the Waco family clinic's parking lot, Carolyn Miller's instincts took over. The hulking figure pinning Julie against the pickup truck never saw her coming. Years of MMA training, hours spent perfecting jabs and takedowns in Detroit's gritty gyms, surged through her 5'8" frame. In 3 seconds, she closed the 20-foot gap, her sneakers silent on the asphalt. With a swift sidestep, she grabbed the attacker's wrist, twisted it with a practiced snap, and drove a precise knee into his midsection. He crumpled to the ground, gasping, all 200 pounds of him no match for her controlled fury. A final elbow to his temple sent him sprawling, unconscious, into the shadow of the truck's 35-inch tires. Julie, trembling against the vehicle, stared wide-eyed, her usual venom replaced by shock. Carolyn stood over the attacker, her breath steady, her braided hair barely out of place, the weight of her silenced rage now a living force in the 2-acre lot. By morning, Waco was buzzing. A grainy security camera clip, ripped from the clinic's system, had hit the town's social media faster than a Texas wildfire. Shared across X and local Facebook groups, the 15-second video showed Carolyn's lightning-fast takedown, her movements a blur of precision. She read one post, racking up 200 likes by noon. At the Piggly Wiggly, whispers of "that nurse from Detroit" drowned out the usual gossip about high school football. The clinic's staff room, once a battleground of Julie's taunts, fell silent when Carolyn walked in for her 12-hour shift. Julie, sporting a bruised arm and a shaken ego, avoided her gaze, her clique's snide remarks replaced by uneasy glances. The director, who'd issued Carolyn's write-up days earlier, called her in. Not to fire her, but to awkwardly praise her. Quick thinking. The town's 120,000 residents, from diner waitresses to Baylor students, now saw Carolyn not as the quiet black outsider from Motor City, but as a force, a protector. Yet, the spotlight burned. Aisha texted from her dorm, thrilled but worried. "Mom, you're viral, but be careful. The missing person flyer from the Piggly Wiggly haunted Carolyn, its connection to the attacker's muttered threats. Knowing too much. Gnawing at her. Who was he? Why Julie? The clip, looping endlessly online, brought admiration but also eyes, some curious, some wary. At night, in her Elm Street garage, Carolyn pounded the punching bag harder, her fists driving into leather with 160 pounds of unresolved tension. Waco's secrets, once whispers, were now screams, and Carolyn, no longer invisible, felt the town's gaze like a cage closing in. Her silence had shattered, and with it, the fragile peace she'd sought in this 5,000 square foot corner of Texas. The viral security footage that made Carolyn Miller a hero in Waco's 120,000 strong community began to curdle like milk left out in the 90-degree Texas sun. By her 5th week in town, the whispers at the Piggly Wiggly and the diner on Highway 84 had shifted. The same folks who'd shared the 15-second clip of her takedown, her 5'8" frame dropping a 200-pound attacker in the clinic's 2-acre parking lot, now muttered about her being too strong, too dangerous. When local high school football game, a 40-yard line gossip circle-eyed her warily as she sat with Aisha, their hushed words painting her as a wildcard, a Detroit fighter who didn't belong in their tight-knit town. Carolyn, who'd spent years honing discipline in MMA cages, felt the sting of their stares, but kept her silence, her dark eyes scanning the crowd like she was sizing up an opponent. Julie, the nurse who'd once led the charge against Carolyn, saw opportunity in the town's unease. Instead of gratitude for being saved, she spun a new narrative to reclaim her dominance. In the clinic's break room, her peroxide, blonde hair gleaming under fluorescent lights, she spread poison. Carolyn's violent, unpredictable. Think she's safe around kids. The accusation, laced with venom, took root fast. Parents at the clinic began requesting other nurses for their children's checkups, their sidelong glances heavy with suspicion. Julie's words reached the director, who, under pressure from a few vocal locals, launched an internal investigation into Carolyn's conduct. The write-up from the spilled medical tray, now weeks old, was dusted off as evidence, and whispers of her dangerous past. As an MMA fighter fueled the fire, losing her job would mean losing her 12-hour shifts, her income, her reason for moving 200 miles to Waco for Aisha. It was Detroit all over again, her life unraveling under scrutiny she didn't deserve. Each night, Carolyn retreated to her Elm Street garage, her fists slamming into the punching bag, with 160 pounds of pent-up fury. The rhythm of her strikes, echoing off the 10-foot beams, was her only outlet as the town's judgment closed in. Aisha, home from Baylor, noticed her mother's tension, her own worry mirroring the missing person flyer still haunting Carolyn's thoughts. Was Julie's attack tied to that flyer, to the attacker's cryptic? Knowing too much, the investigation loomed like a 100-pound weight, threatening to crush her fresh start. At the clinic, Julie's clique smirked as Carolyn passed, their whispers now bold accusations. Yet, in the quiet of her 5,000 square foot rental's porch under a blood-orange Texas sunset, Carolyn's fighter's instincts stirred. She'd survived worse than small town gossip and a vindictive nurse. Waco's secrets were unraveling, and if they wanted a fight, she'd be ready. Gloves off, the storm swirling around Carolyn Miller in Waco, Texas, reached its breaking point under the weight of a 120,000-person town's suspicions. The Waco Family Clinic's investigation, fueled by Julie's venomous claim that Carolyn was violent, a danger to kids, threatened to strip away her 12-hour nursing shifts and the fragile life she'd built for Aisha. The whispers at the Piggly Wiggly and the 40-yard line bleachers painted her as a 5'8" threat, her MMA past twisted into a weapon against her. But at a packed town hall meeting in a 3,000 square foot community center off Highway 84, the tide turned. Mrs. Evelyn Carter, a 72-year-old black woman with a cane and a voice like steel, stood up. Carolyn had helped her months earlier, steadying her after a dizzy spell at the clinic, her hands gentle yet firm. "This woman saved my life with kindness," Evelyn declared, her words cutting through the crowd's murmurs. "Y'all call her dangerous. She's stronger than any of you, and this town's better for it." The room fell silent, faces flushing under the weight of truth, and the clinic director, seated up front, shifted uncomfortably. Carolyn didn't speak. Words had never been her shield. Instead, she acted. In her Elm Street Rentals 5,000 square foot yard, she set up a free self-defense class for Waco's women and seniors, turning her garage's 10-foot beams into a training space. On a crisp evening, under a Texas sky streaked with 90-degree sunset hues, a dozen women, some hesitant, others curious, gathered on mats she'd bought from a pawn shop. Carolyn, her braided hair pulled back, taught them to pivot, block, and strike, her movements as precise as they'd been in the clinic's 2-acre parking lot when she'd saved Julie. Her voice, calm but commanding, echoed her years in Detroit's cages, now channeled to empower. Aisha, standing nearby, beamed with pride, her Baylor textbooks forgotten for the night. The missing person flyer's shadow lingered in Carolyn's mind, but she pushed it aside, focusing on the women learning to protect themselves. Then Julie appeared. The peroxide, blonde nurse, who'd once smeared Carolyn's name, slipped into the back of the class, her usual smirk gone. No one spoke. Carolyn didn't pause, guiding a 60-year-old widow through a wrist lock with the same focus she'd used to drop a 200-pound attacker. Julie's eyes, heavy with something unspoken, regret, perhaps, met Carolyn's for a fleeting moment. No apologies were offered, none needed. The silence between them, under the glow of a single 100-watt bulb, said enough. As the class ended, Waco's whispers softened, replaced by stories of Carolyn's strength, not as a threat, but as a gift, in that 465 square meter yard, with sweat and resolve. Carolyn rebuilt her place in a town that had tried to break her, proving her fight was never just for herself. If you were Carolyn, would you have stayed silent or fought back against the town's accusations? How would you balance strength and restraint in a new community? Share your thoughts, like, comment, and pass this story along to spark a conversation.